Hey, everybody, it's Ryan and/or Ryan Runs, and I'm gonna be honest, this is a bit of a quickie, maybe not in length, but certainly in preparation. I'm a big believer in the saying, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing poorly, kind of in the spirit of just getting things out or they never get done, which is the other thing I do. So I'm going to do something, and it's going to be mostly, again, just talking about what games I've been playing, because, again, I have this unquenchable need to do that. I've played minimum four more that I'm going to talk about, and like I said, not as much preparation, but also just wanted to get this out. One of those games I probably didn't need to prepare so much for, because it was a re-release of a game I played on the Xbox 360 called Scott Pilgrim, maybe versus the World. I think it just uses the title from the comic. In fact, it takes its inspiration from the comic. I know it was a good movie, and if you agree with that, you might also think the game is good because it trades. Actually, that's not fair. The movie done by Edgar Wright is, regardless of whether or not you like it, I know that might be an acquired taste film of sorts, is an Edgar Wright, I don't know, masterpiece, but it's certainly emblematic of his master of the craft of filmmaking. So if you like that movie for the same reasons you like the comic book, you might also like the game. And I don't know why I'm starting out in such couched terms. I feel like it's a good game. I liked it on the 360. I liked the visuals when I played it. It's a standard beat 'em up, and I think at the time I wasn't playing a ton of those. I know that's probably the genre I talk about the most on this show for whatever reason, because I hadn't played all those old Capcom ones or Streets of Rage. So maybe I'm getting back to form here, but I liked it when it came out on the 360, and I liked it this time around, if maybe a little bit less, because it is just exactly the same thing. You're not getting any upgraded visuals, really, because it is just pixel art made HD. To me, Scott Pilgrim occupies kind of a middle ground, where that aesthetic was coming back, but it's not as strict as something like a Shovel Knight, another good example, which I don't think anything is. If you haven't played Shovel Knight, I don't think I've talked about that yet, actually, have I? Yeah, that's on the list too. But Shovel Knight was this incredibly strict interpretation, or not even modernization, but they took like limitations of the Nintendo and made it aesthetic in a way. So anyway, I played Scott Pilgrim with my daughter, and she loved it, and we liked it, and we had a grand old time. All the DLC is in there, so I guess if that's added, then I don't think they ever released a version on the 360 that had it just all in one. So maybe that is something, but you know what you're going to get, especially if you played it before. So Scott Pilgrim the game. Good enough. Lego Jurassic World is the third game I played that I'm going to talk about second. And I feel like a long time ago, and it's been years since I played a Lego game, actually. So this is a return as well, although I did never play this game. So Lego Jurassic World, I think, for me, just solidified the fact that the amount that you enjoy a Lego game is proportional to the amount you enjoy the franchise upon which it is based. And gosh, going back, I think I found that out myself with Lego Batman, the first one. Probably, like, this is going way back to the 360, when I thought maybe it was possible to just play every Lego game. And I want to say I started early on in my marriage, and it was something that we could play together. You know, it wasn't too complicated, and it was still fun. And again, Lego Indiana Jones, we might have done a Harry Potter in there, Star Wars, endless Star Wars. Was interesting because you got to see that funny little Lego take on it with the bad kind of slapsticky humor about it. So that's still here in Lego Jurassic World. Fortunately, you get to play more than just Jurassic World. You're playing through all three of the original movies, Yeah, and Jurassic World, of course. And then bonus, this must have come out before Fallen Kingdom, so you don't have to slog through whatever the video game form would have been of that slog of a movie as well. So, and if you know me, you know that I do enjoy Jurassic Park, so I did enjoy all of the takes on it here. So, again, hopefully I got some footage down in the corner. You can easily pick out scenes from the movie in any of that stuff. I know, and it's great. It's also one of the later examples of Lego taking the actual sound bites from the film. The last Lego... Actually, okay, I lied. I did play a different Lego game recently. I don't know if I ever talked a bit about it on any of this stuff, but Lego Lord of the Rings, I finally played also with my daughter. Maybe it doesn't count because I literally bought that game back when I was playing just about every Lego game, it seems. In fact, it would have been before the switch to the Xbox One, because I think that's where it fell off, as I got the Xbox One and it just... 360 game kind of fell by the wayside. Although I do still have a healthy backlog. That's not healthy. I want to say I have 4-5 disc games just sitting around because you can't sell them if you're not done with them. It's the rule. Lego Jurassic World is one of the later examples, like Lego Lord of the Rings, which I have played, so it hasn't been years since I played a Lego game, where they use the real sound clips, and I like it better, let's say. And there obviously is still a charm to those games that don't do that. I don't know if they still do those versions, or if they all just... I feel like it's a combo also at this point. It's definitely clips from the actual movie, but some of it feels like either re-recordings, like they got Chris Pratt in there, maybe, even? I guess I wouldn't be surprised at this point. Lego games are probably some sort of a juggernaut. But it seems like a combo of also impressionists or other voice actors doing a darn good impression. In fact, one of the most enjoyable things about this game is they got other voice actors to do their impression of Goldblum, Laura Dern, and Sam Neill grunts. You know, like when they're jumping or hopping, like and it's uncanny how good they get with the tone. Like, I could swear it's Jeff Goldblum grunting. It's crazy. But Lego Jurassic World, I don't know if it's supplanted my favorite Lego video game, which is probably still Indiana Jones. Again, still for that same reason. I don't know if Jurassic Park has supplanted my love of the Indiana Jones movies, just speaking cinematically. So, hey, this at least is in keeping with that. But this is also a later example of a Lego game where they're, I guess, at this point, not experimenting anymore, but they've included an open world. The first time I remember them doing this was with a Marvel, maybe just Lego Marvel or Lego Avengers. I can't remember because there's like, those are different games somehow, even though they, with the characters they bring in, they just... Speaking of which, characters in this game, Mr. DNA. Great poll. And I want to say Spielberg is a character too. Anyway, this does have an open world and it's super fun. In fact, it might be the funnest part, I guess, gameplay wise, let's put it that way. It's cool going through all the different, obviously, scenes from the movie in Lego video game form, but if you want to just get to playing, me and my daughter had more fun, I think, just roaming around the world and doing all of the different goals that they had built out throughout the place. You know, you can turn them into dinosaurs, so those figure into the puzzles sometimes. You can create your own dinosaur, so even that figures in. I think we needed to create a raptor with a T-Rex head at some point because they gain different abilities by doing that. There's also some really cool quality of life improvements that I don't know if they already existed or not, because again, it's been a while, but the actual levels appear to be shorter, which I guess bang for your buck on the old games, but it felt like those levels just lasted forever sometimes. And then it was gated because you didn't have certain abilities, so you'd have to go through to get everything. So you had to play every single level 2 times, and there wasn't always chapters. Like in this one, the games are shorter. There's like 2 or 3 chapters to every level, and you can start at any one when you replay. You can, like I said, the character customization stuff appears to shortcut some of that stuff. This is the first time I've ever remembered being able to go through every single level and get, I forget what it's called here. So if you get a certain amount of coins in every level, you get a gold brick or a completion and I can't remember what they call it here. It's different in every, it's like True Adventurer or something like that. This is the first game, Lego game, I remember being able to get that in the first playthrough of every level, which is cool because before you couldn't do that, and it was like, oh, you need to get the cheat brick to do the 2x studs and stuff. So anyway, really cool Lego game. I would say this is right up there with Lego Indiana Jones, if not right next to it. So Lego Jurassic World, talked about it longer than I thought, especially since it's not the most bestest favorite game I want to talk about this time around. Me and my daughter also played, not a multiplayer game, but switching back and forth, taking turns, Sayonara Wild Hearts, which I'm sure I bought back when it came out because it just had my name written all over it, right? And I was not disappointed. The game is flat out stunning. Actually, no, let's see. I played this at PAX, whatever year before it came out, at the Annapurna booth, with I think a couple other things that I can't remember and haven't followed up like I've followed up with this thing. And then for whatever reason, again, after buying it right when it came out, just didn't get around to it until right now. But just absolutely gorgeous, from design to story to what's it called when you feel a feeling because of your eyeballs? It's that, only better. So on its surface, it's kind of a rhythm game where you are collecting different things along different kind of note highways, I guess you could say. Again, the gameplay is going to be down below it. You'll see it and you'll think you get it right away, except the game never is content with being any one thing for long, except a really good album. Like, this is a video game album slash music album in a way that I know more games are, like Sword and Sorcery definitely probably fits this as well, but I haven't played a lot of them, and I don't think there's a lot of them out there, and certainly not many as good as this one. So what I mean, though, by the fact that it's not content to stay in any one lane is that it changes its mechanics, not just from level to level, but sometimes within the same level. And it's to the beat, and it's to the feel, and it's to the... if I had to guess at what the story was, you are... Actually, no, it tells you exactly what the story is. But the visuals don't necessarily follow like a linear... The story, even, I would say, doesn't necessarily follow. That's not correct either. It's probably linear. There is an arc. It's just so abstract in a way, from visual representation to gameplay, that it's an entirely new experience for me anyways. It's, what if listening to music was more of a physical experience and not just in a way that, you know, I'm tapping my toes or something like that. Like, what if your movements, what if the way you interacted, that's the word I'm looking for, interaction. What if the way you interacted with music was truer, you know? This is that game. So I'm sure I've described it perfectly at this point. But Sayonara Wild Hearts, by the end of the day, is a fantastic experience that is an album that you'll want to listen to, I feel like, in its own right, I guess. There's a challenge mode to it. Once you get through the levels, it's not terribly long. It is one of those games, much like Super Hot, I guess, bad example, but there's a rhythm to that game as well, where it finds itself in the challenges, I think, even more so, and I think it's a smart design choice. Also, I think they probably, I don't know, I mean, they could have sold this mainline campaign only for probably just as much money, and I'd be just as satisfied, but I place a little bit more value on experience than length necessarily. So the challenge mode is also cool, though. It shows up in the way of astrological clues that you then have to decipher, that honestly, if I didn't look them up, I don't know that I ever would have. But it was fun to look up the answer myself and play off my daughter in that way and be like, okay, this is what it is. And she actually did pretty good. In fact, this marks, I don't want to say it's the first time, because I'm sure it's happened before and would happen more often probably if I let it. But there was a challenge in this game for getting, I want to say, perfects, because some of the rhythm things that it does call for are very, I mean, it's all timing based, but it's like hitting the button at the time the circle reaches the center type thing. You know, I feel like we've seen that before in games. There was a challenge for getting perfects on an entire level, I think, at those things. And I gave up. I don't know, man. I wasn't getting it. Like, to the point where I couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting it, because it seemed inconsistent. And when you think about that, like, especially after the fact, and, you know, when the anger level lowers, it's obvious to me that the disconnect was coming from here to here. So they say you slow down with age. I handed it over to my daughter. Okay, I actually don't even know if I handed it over. I think I probably just put the controller down and gave up. And she picked it up and did it. Just, I think it was the very next time. So, again, I want to say this is the first time that's happened. And I'm sure it'll happen more, and probably would happen more if I let it. But Sayonara Wild Hearts. Play it times 1 billion. I should probably be ending this episode with that, but instead I'm going to end it with, let me see, Scott Pilgrim, Jurassic World. Yep, the worst is unfair. My least favorite, least impressive, just least game of all of these, and I know that's insulting. In fact, that's part of the problem with this game, Outriders, is that I feel bad for the things I dislike about it, because it's a solidly made game. It's People Can Fly. You know, I played Gears Judgment, which is not the game to play from them. I want to say they're the Painkiller guys. But it was the last thing I played of theirs. I didn't do Bulletstorm. I think they had something in between that. But Gears Judgment was solid. Like, its problems weren't in the gameplay. It was kind of a heartbreaker in terms of story structure and otherwise. But Outriders feels a lot like that. Like, they learned all of the lessons they needed to from that. The gameplay, the gunplay, it's all completely solid. The shooting is just good. You'll never, I feel like, feel bad or cheated. You know, like, all of that's good. I guess that probably speaks a little bit to AI as well. You know, the enemies do just fine. No complaints. It's just, for all of the right that it does, it's nothing new. It's a cover shooter. It's a third-person cover shooter, and you play a bunch of thick guys in a lot of different ways. One of the more striking ways is, okay, that's not fair. I tried to make my guy look real dumb. So I guess the bonus to the game there is that you can make your guy look real dumb, but my guy looked real dumb. So success, but it's not a look that's hard to do in the game. So the story, if I had to guess, having played the whole game, in fact, numerous times at this point, maybe twice over at least, I guess. It just seems like so many more. You messed up Earth. You're going to a new planet. You get there, big electrical storm. You wake up many years later, altered, with superpowers. And those superpowers manifest in the game as different ults or abilities, I guess they are, because they're equal. You know, it's not like you have, I feel like in a lot of games you'll get two kind of more often abilities and then one big ult. This one, it seems pretty equal. You assign them to 3 different spots and you can kind of use them interchangeably. I'm sure that's what they were going for. And actually, this is a good part of the game, so I should be fair. They do, like, the synergy there is really good, both with your own abilities and with the abilities of the people you play with. I think it maxes out at 3 players at a time. Destiny style, you could say. But not Destiny style, and I know they made a big deal about this, is that it's not a games of service thing. It's not something that's, you know, going to have events and this and, you know, make their money on the back end type thing, which is fine for lots of people and me from time to time even, but I'm sure you've heard me talk out against that largely. So I will say that was a selling point for me on this thing. The fact that it had an end, that it wasn't going to sit there and try to be my everything for several months on end. So it's just that for the amount of time they put into everything else about it, like the story, the items, the collectibles that you can get, the story on those things. I don't know that I've ever played a game, like Mass Effect included, that had more universe or world words in the game. And I started reading a lot of it. I honestly really tried to get into this stuff, but it's just such a mostly ugly, but purposefully ugly, right? Like it's supposed to be a pretty bad world in a way. So I don't know that they're, I'm necessarily criticizing them, but it's an ugly world with a lot of ugly people, and not face ugly, just a real deep down ugly that you can feel when they speak to you. It's just none of it in the end was really interesting. And it certainly wasn't what was getting me through the game. What was getting me through the game was the gameplay. Like I said, the shooting is solid, but also the type of game that it is I don't know if I've heard Borderlands mentioned more often than like Destiny or what was the other game people like to mention when they're talking about? I don't know. To me, it's a Borderlands, honestly. Like you're picking up guns, so it must be good if it got me to do the loot juggling thing again, which I have been so turned off of as of late. In fact, if you heard me talk about the Tom Clancy, the Ghost Recon Breakpoint, I was slowly remembering those names, not just making up names on the fly, which is how it sounds like they title Tom Clancy games nowadays. But I think the customization on that game is just so much. Like scopes and this and that and the other. This is more Borderlands-y in that you are just picking up guns like wholesale, but also less Borderlands-y in that there's not so many, like, maybe it's because I played so much of Borderlands 2, but the way the guns come out in Borderlands 3, the most recent one I played, it just was easy to grasp, like to know and to kind of see the RNG going there, like what parts were changing where for what. And to there it's done to the nth degree. So it gets to be a bit much. And Outriders was a lot more understanding of not wanting to get into that, I want to say. Like, it's made some smart concessions, I feel like, kind of in that vein of we're not going to sit here and be the forever game. It's very finite in a way that I appreciate. So it's funny because I stopped playing Borderlands 3 and Gears of War 5, Gears 5, I guess it would have been, which might be the other game I was looking to think of. I did already mention that though. I stopped playing those two games to play this game, which is essentially what if you put those two games together. So I don't know. I've heard also lots of terms like COVID game and Game Pass game bandied about. So yeah, like that makes some sense. If this were a $60 thing that did go forever, then I can absolutely say I wouldn't have played it. So it's a Game Pass game. It has a cap, and I enjoyed it. So for all the crap I just said, and honestly, I do feel bad because there is so much story about it. It goes on for longer than I expected. There's so much of it. I'm sorry I didn't like it, that part, but I'd still say it's worth playing somewhere, somehow along the line. So for something that I was just going to spit out here, that went longer than maybe I anticipated, but I'm sure as I do this more often, that will happen less. So come back for those if you're interested, and at bookclubformovies.com if you're interested in that. I'll talk to you later. No, that's what you say on the phone. I'll see you. I'll be here again later.